Hello and welcome to a quick review of Beowulf. Let's begin with a prayer, an Our Father Pater Noster in Old English. In them name des Vader and des Sohn and des Heiligen Gastes, so vlietje. Vader oor, thu de erd on hevnum, si thien name je halgod. To bekomme thien rietje, je werfe thien wille on erfen swaswa on hevnum. Orne dai chwamlichen chlaf, sile osthodai, an forifos or giltas, swaswa we forifot or giltendum, and neie lad thu os on kostlunga, ak elis os of evle, so liedje in de namen des Vader and des Sonne and des Heiligen Gastes, so liedje, so be it. Amen. That's what soth truly actually is what it means. Soth is the word for truth. It gives us the Shakespearean word soothsayer, somebody who always says the sooth. If you get a PhD in soothsaying, they call you Dr. Sooth, and you talk in rhyme. So I won't be talking in rhyme, nor will I be talking in the Old English alliterative measure, but we'll be reading a translation which purports to be in the alliterative measure of Beowulf, but it really isn't, but it gives a sense of it. I use this translation for two reasons. One, because it's free, it's public domain, it's so old, but also it is Gomera tries to echo the ancient words, and there's a value to that. The disadvantage, of course, is that it sometimes gives us nonsense, because these archaic words, first of all, they're not used anymore. Secondly, where they are used, they mean something different now. So in trying to be true to the original word, in trying to be etymologically correct, Gomera makes some howlers sometimes. But it's free, so we'll do that. This presentation will serve two purposes. It's a review for the people in the Tolkien class, because Beowulf is so foundational in so much of what Tolkien did that, and plus he spent so much of his life teaching it and immersed in it, that for that reason alone it would be important to read. But we don't necessarily have the class time to do something outside of Tolkien, so it's a good review, something to have in hand. Secondly, for the medieval course, the anthology that we're using has a really generous selection of Beowulf, but not the whole thing. So this is a way to fill in what we don't read in class. So let's begin right away. We start with, first of all, the poem is divided into fits, which more or less correspond to what we would call chapters. They are irregular, arbitrary divisions in the text, and so what better word for that than a chapter. There's some mistakes in numbering, so the fit numbers won't always correspond. There's only a single manuscript that survives of Beowulf. But we'll follow the numbers that are in your text, which is online. You needn't print it out ever if you want to save paper, since so much of what we need to cover will be covered through these series of videos. But if you want to, it's there. You should be able to print it out. So let's begin then. We open with just an attention-getting word, what, which is here translated, lo, praise the prowess of the people kings. So you see the basic principle of the verse, which is alliteration, praise and prowess, but we won't be paying too much attention to that as we go along. I want to start focusing on well, first of all, this opening section really is backstory, and backstory not of Beowulf's people, but of the people he comes to, the Danes. And this is a kind of a mythological connection. Some scholars, including Tolkien, say that, connecting the royal families of the of the Danes with gods or heroic people of the past. And so we go back to an ancestor of the king that we'll be dealing with in this poem, the king named Hrothgar. We go back to his ancestors who are connected to a hero named Scyld, which means shield. But he's described also, he's given the second name of shaving. The ing prefix, or suffix, I'm sorry, is either a patronymic or a kind of an ethnic term, the people who are friends of or who follow Shafe. Now that word, it's a name, but it's also a word meaning sheaf, okay, as in bringing in the sheaves, okay. So Tolkien suggests, and of course he's not the first to make this suggestion, there are some who believe that this is some kind of corn god or a grain, a god of grain. So we start out with the story of Shafe, which is or Scyld, the son of Shafe, or follower of Shafe, or worshipper of Shafe, who comes out of nowhere. He just appears floating on the water on a ship as an infant, and is raised by the Danes, and he grows up not only to become an important member of the Danish community, but in fact to lead them. He becomes a great warrior and king. The two functions were synonymous. To lead into war is to be a king. Since erst he lay friendless, a foundling, fate repaid him. Line 7. Jump down to line 12. To him, that is Shafe, an heir was afterward born. Famed was this Beowulf, line 17. Here there's a difficulty because the manuscript says Beowulf, probably because the scribe was confused, and there was this replication of the name Beowulf, Beowulf. Some translators, as Gumara, is assuming that the manuscript is correct, that the name was Beowulf, and but it's simply a different Beowulf, not the Beowulf that is the hero of this story. Another Beowulf, Beowulf of the Danes. So he says, famed was this Beowulf, line 17. Okay, let's move on, line 43 or so. No less these loaded the lordly gifts, Thane's huge treasure, than those had done who in former times forth had sent him, soul on the seas, a suckling child. You see how awkward this translation is. It attempts to follow the word order of the original, which, again, might be laudable if you're following the Old English, but it makes for some awkward syntax in modern English. Let's end it there, and we'll pick up again in a moment.